You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. I've got an extremely special guest in the house because he has not been on the show for a little while. I think it's got to be almost a year, I think.
It has been almost a year.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give your position and how long you've been with the city and what you do there.
Absolutely. So welcome, everyone. My name is Devon, and I'm actually the aquatics facilities manager. So I oversee the Northport Aquatic Center here, as well as some parts of Warm Rental Springs out there right now. I've been with the city. I'm working into my 5th year here with the city. And that's a little bit about me.
So the Aquatic Center, when are we projecting it to be open up?
The Aquatic Center is actually opening this Saturday. It's been open since, I want to say, October 17th. The pool's been open since after Hurricane Ian. So we got the pool open pretty early there, and actually supported some other surrounding county swim programs for while their facilities were still closed. But the actual water park side of it is actually opening this Saturday, coinciding right with the school spring break.
Awesome. How are things going at the Aquatic Center from start now? You know, we're getting the word out that we actually have an aquatic center, and people in our city and surrounding areas are getting used to the fact that we have this now, aren't they?
Absolutely. The numbers have been incredible. Obviously, if people don't know, we had that little hurricane come through the area in October there. Just a tiny one, right, John? So our October and November were a little bit slower as people were kind of in that recovery phase for their homes there. But I will say, beginning off with this year, 2023 has been a phenomenal start of the year for the Aquatic Center. Really busy weekends. Last weekend, we actually had 200 plus people for both days, and it's just a pool open right now. So it has been phenomenal. Community surrounded it. We've had a lot, added some good programs. Our swimming lessons have increased. It's been really phenomenal.
You know, I was telling you just before I got on the air, I just got back from Cuyahoga Falls up in Ohio, and we had ourselves a 48-degree day and a 60-degree day. Of course, we had those two 38-degree days in the middle, but I was able to get both Ellie and Evie T, my granddaughters, 4 and 2, out to the parks, and you know, they have some beautiful parks up there, but to come home and know what type of parks we have here. The couple things I noticed up there, and I want you to kind of address how we handle these things down here, is that they had some graffiti in locations up there and had no way of notifying the city about the graffiti. But a lot of that kind of stuff, we're kind of a little bit ahead of the curve, I would think, aren't we down here?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that we have is the city has a North Report app. So we get a lot of our feedback from there. But if you see something that, kind of looks a little odd, graffiti, bees on the playground, things like that, you can take a picture of it, send it in, and it gets routed to the right department. That way we can address that. One of the big things, here in this community is people love their parks looking nice. They want them to look nice. So our phones are, ringing there if people do see things that are wrong, and we can get the right people out there to fix it. Absolutely.
And, when I was up there, one of the games we play is we actually search for parks. So I put parks in my phone, and we go and we investigate parks. And one of the games we play is we spend 20, 30 minutes at each park. So you get a variety of different things at each park. One of the things that I took them to up there, Oak Park, was a nice neighborhood park that was laid out very cool within the neighborhood, had really nice structures, had the of course, a small amount of graffiti, but also had the restrooms, which, of course, this time of year are locked because of wintertime.
Absolutely.
But things are a little different in Ohio compared to here. But then we went to Valley Vista Park, and Valley Vista Park was really designed around handicap because they had the ramps and different things for kids. And I know we've talked about this a lot on the show, but talk about the diversity we have within our park system and why that is a good value for our citizens.
Absolutely. So you talk about, our Boundless Adventure Playground. I was just actually out there with my kids this past weekend, and what an incredible park where you take kids of all abilities and you put them in one area, and nobody notices the difference. Nobody sees the wheelchair ramps. Nobody sees the cushion floor or anything like that. So it's incredible. We also have some parks that are geared towards kids younger than 5. We have parks that are geared towards kids 6 through 12. But then when you start talking about the different buildings and facilities we have here as well, the Morgan Centers, it's so incredibly positioned here between a middle school and high school that you get a lot of our teen population that comes over here. But you also have that mix. We have the teens. We also have the active older adults. So it's incredible to see that blend that happens there. And then, of course, the facility that I get the joy and pleasure of overseeing, the Aquatic Center, it's a fully accessible facility there. So, we get a lot of young kids that are coming to swimming lessons, but we're also super important for that active older adult community come take their water aerobics classes and everything. So it's important, that we highlight those items. So we're helping as many people in the community. We're not just going for one age group or one demographic or anything like that. It's across the board.
And I want to kind of hit one of the things that just absolutely is a necessity in our area is the swim lessons. But I want to highlight that entry point to swim lessons with how are we taking the elementary kids and getting them, into the mindset of water safety through our teaching with the school district.
So this will be at the city of Northport's pool. At our previous pool here in town, we had the program as well. So we're working on year about 7 or 8 of this program, but it's called the Monda Swim Program. And with that program, every second grader in the county takes swimming lessons. So we service Glen Allen, Cranberry, Lamarck, Toledo Blade, and Atwater at our facility there. And the second graders get to come for a week of swimming lessons. But it's also important when we talk about swimming safety and swimming lessons and things like that, we need to understand that safety begins in, on, and around the water. A lot of people think it's just the water. No, what are the steps we could have done to prevent the situation from happening? So we actually have a school out this week. We started our program today. And one of the funny things was the kid had goggles. And the teacher says, are you allowed to wear goggles? I said, absolutely. If it makes you comfortable, wear them in the water. But I said, buddy, when you're running around your pool at home, do you have goggles on your face? No. I said, well, how about we, get in the water and learn how to swim without them, because we want to make it as realistic as possible. When you fall in, you're not swimming hours and hours with your eyes open under the water, but that ability just to be able to open your eyes and understand positionally where you're at in the pool could be the life, changing second there. So it is very important there. And then, like I said, we go over all the, swim with the Paraneer lifeguard chair. Don't just pack it, wear your life jacket, sun safety. We go over a whole gamut of things with the kids so they understand that it's all about the safety in, on, and around the water.
And, I want to take the pool for a second and take it out of the equation. We don't have a city pool. What kind of danger does that set for the youth of our city? Because unlike a lot of areas, now we do have access to beaches, but we also have 80 miles of canals. And there's water hazards, not just there, but there's people backed up living in golf course areas, different things like that. And non-golf course areas, we have a lot of ponds throughout our city.
Absolutely.
We live in the tropics, so having water around and alligators and different things like this, there is a value to being able to get into water and get out of water, and not panic. Can you
Absolutely.
talk? Can you kind of highlight if we didn't have this access, how does that affect the youth? And what kind of numbers are we talking about that go through this type of training?
Absolutely. So I actually just pulled that up on my uh, program here. So last year, for example, we had 1,400 kids through swimming lessons. Another and then hours wise, we taught about 2,500 hours worth of swim through the school system. But we know that swimming follows generations. We've seen it. So we know if grandma doesn't learn how to swim, then more likely mom's not going to learn how to swim. Then if mom doesn't know how to swim, kids are, and it just continues going and going. But you're exactly right. With having over 80 miles of canals in our system, it's important that kids have a respect for water, and that's a big piece there. And you're exactly right. The comfortability is it can happen anywhere. A lot of people, they immediately associate drowning with city pools, community pools, whatever the case may be. But it's not. It's bathtubs, it's ditches, it's canals, it's the playground when your kid runs after a ball and slips into the water there and can't get out. So it's absolutely important that they have these skill sets. We had staff. It would actually be almost 3 years now. We teach a program called Float for Life here through the Josh Yoder Foundation. We had a trainer come down from Nebraska and trained myself and another staff member to be trainers. And that program is a float-based training for kids 6 months to 3 years old, to understand that for that age group, we want them to be able to float before they can swim. So if they were to fall into the water, they're comfortable, as you were saying, with turning over and at least being able to scream help. And one of the cool things about that program before you graduate, let's say, the program, is you actually have to jump in the water fully clothed, shoes, shirt, shorts, everything, and be able to orient yourself at that point in time to make it as realistic as possible.
That's kind of a new technique that's out there, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
And how long has that been around? I mean, how long?
Um,
Obviously, we're new at it, but how long has it been since they've been implementing something like that?
it's at least been, I would say, 10 years for that. I mean, there's other little programs. This program, and not knocking other programs out there, but this program brings a care approach to it. We're not trying to scare people into doing things, scaring the children, scaring the youth into swimming,
Sure.
throwing them in the water. This is, working with them so they get that confidence level, they get that boost, and then they, feel good about it there. And then, like I said, we highlight that 6 month to 3 years old, because a lot of people, they want their kids to be expert swimmers at 3 years old. I'm not saying you can't be an expert swimmer at 3 years old, but we need to set some realistic timelines and some realistic goals. And kids should not be left unattended around water, at whatever swim level they are. It just should not happen. There should always be a water watcher, as we call them. So that program allows us to teach the kid while also educating the parent as well to, don't go inside and get your phone. Your phone's not important there. Ask your kid to come out of the pool, sit in a chair, then go, things like that.
Have courses like this, and I know this is kind of a tricky question. So, have programs like this curbed drowning of kids?
There's definitely positives to that, but unfortunately, the negatives are outweighing the positives for that. And not necessarily the program, but we're just seeing more kids drowning. Florida is leading the country as the last statistics that I looked at for drownings in the United States. And when you look at that, you could sit there and layer the numbers in, and that's where, like you said, it's a tricky question. Is that because of population boom? Is that because more grandparents are moving down here and retiring? There's so many pieces, but the reality and the fact of it is, Florida last year, I believe it was 98 drownings in the state there, I believe. And I can look that up and verify, but it's just a number that we don't want to be leading. And absolutely part of curbing those drowning statistics is getting kids in those swimming lessons, getting the water safety, putting those barriers up around. It all falls under that big word that begins with a P, prevention. And these are all tools in the toolkit of prevention.
You can take the fear out of being in the water. And sometimes I say this to you on a cautious side of things. When you take the fear out of being in the pool, being in the water, being in that environment of having lifeguards who are watching, and then you go to a setting where maybe an apartment complex where it's swim at your own risk. I think that's where a lot of people forget, and even the kids forget sometimes. Hey, I've gotta have somebody around me. I've got to be prepared. Um, that's sort of what this course does, though. Too, is it really educates them on all the aspects of safety, right?
Absolutely, all aspects of the safety, and like I said, it's a you hit it right on the head there. It's important that we don't get distracted. These things right here that are beeping and buzzing, and we're down. Looking at those items, those are precious seconds at that point, and seconds turn to minutes, and then you look up and say, "Oh boy, 15 minutes went by." What's happening there? So absolutely, and the float for life, our parent and child class. We make sure that our parents understand at this point, if you have any questions throughout this class, please ask us for that. And a lot of the parents, it's them just getting educated themselves to understand that water's dangerous. And, it doesn't matter how experienced, how long you've been swimming. When our lifeguards here are training at the aquatic center, they don't swim alone. There's always a lifeguard watching them swim, because you just don't know when an emergency could happen there.
So, any of the listening audience out there, put a few comments up, and I'm going to ask this question to Devon here in a second, but I'm going to ask it to you, the listening audience. What's the value of not just the aquatic center, but what is the value to the city to have great parks and to have them really at a high level? Now, from a real estate standpoint, I can tell you it's a huge part and a huge draw for a younger population. I think our average age is, I want to say, it used to be I could get away with 48, but I think we've climbed up a little bit now. And I think we're in the like 54 to 55 range, which is still really young for the state of Florida. And so we have, 5 elementary schools dumping into 2 middle schools, dumping into 1 high school. And there is a lot of involvement at our parks, and there's a lot of involvement from the city. But I heard you say, Devon, that you took your kid to the park. What, being a city employee of the park system, what is the value of a good park system for a city?
Absolutely, a huge amount, and it's something you can't even quantify into a number for that, because there's so many variables. But we love the Boundless Playground. We were just there, and we had our my sister-in-law was in town, and my wife had her. Oh, come over to the playground, everything like that. But no, it's somewhere safe, that the community setting. Our city does wonderful with all of our playgrounds and parks. They all have something unique and different, and everything there. And then once again, it runs up into the aquatic center. My kids love the aquatic center in the summertime. When I'm there, it's funny, I say in the summertime, I'm there 7 days a week. I work my 5 days, and I'm there the other 2 with my kids. But it gives you a sense of community. You have something here, local, close by. Our lives are all crazy, especially these days. So, you don't have to travel far. And then when it comes time, which one of my kids is actually going to be starting lessons here in May. I know the quality, especially working for the city, the quality of the city staff, and how well they run all these programs. There is nothing that's done, without 150% effort in it. All of our staff here are trained at the Aquatic Center for Swimming Lessons through the Red Cross Water Safety Instructor Program. That's not something you get in and you pass because you showed up to class. That's something that you have to work for there. So it's nice to know that people have that same level of commitment that I have for other people's kids. They have that commitment for everyone's kid across the board. So it's huge.
Don't we have opportunities for not just the youth, but even seniors to become lifeguards and really assist big time in the summer?
Absolutely. So one of our lifeguards here, one of our most asked for swim instructors. Her list is this long. She just won our Employee of the Year. She's one of our oldest lifeguards, and she cracked a joke there. She says, "Oh, I don't know how long I'm gonna do this." I'm like, "You're gonna be here for a while, you know." But absolutely, any age, if you can pass the test and get through it, absolutely. We are always willing there. Come to the Aquatic Center. If you can't get it on the first go around, we're more than welcome to work with you to figure out, what areas we need to improve upon. But yes, we have from 16 years old all the way up to, I think, 62, 63 right now, and everything in between.
So I want to talk. Because I've been over there. I've been, I've done my shows from the Aquatic Center. We've had, involvement there quite often, believe it or not. But I want to talk a little bit about the transition from kids on a bus and the age of the kids now. And I'm not talking age as in age. I'm talking how they are, what they're doing in life. The kind of the open platform that they have a lot of times that we used to have restraints in. And I want to take and put some rules into place that you guys may have at the Aquatic Center, because, I was a bus driver a long time ago, and
Yep.
and being a bus driver today is not what I used to do before. But I want to talk about that restraint that you put into your environment because of the safety side of things. Isn't there more controls and more leverage points for you to correct people and maybe even have them sit out?
Absolutely. So, one thing that all of our staff do a very phenomenal job at, and I think with the teenage and the youth group, sometimes we lose track of as adults is, these teens and the youth that come into the Aquatic Center, they don't have to earn the respect. They get the respect as everybody else does through the gate at that point in time. So, we don't see as much of that there because we treat everybody with respect at the facility. But you're exactly right, that big S word is safety, and that's the first thing I approach with the situation. If we do have to talk, is are we making safe decisions? If not, then we need to correct that at this point in time, so we can make safe decisions. 99% of the time that works out there. We try not to do sit outs and things like that. We, if you are a teen and you're there with your parent, we will walk you over to your parent and have that conversation with your parent. That sometimes solidifies some of that stuff there. But it's really approaching this generation that we're seeing come in. A lot of it is how they are treated or their perception of the treatment of them. And if you approach them with respect and understanding, and here's the rules, we can't be jumping on each other, we can't be roughhousing, they really do understand. I think sometimes, with other situations I've seen it, we approach them from the point of, you can't be doing this, and that doesn't work. It's not going to work. It's just not where we're at this point.
And I bring that up for a lot of reasons, because we have a mix here of seniors all the way to really young youth that go to the Aquatic Center, and I've also watched the blend do really well together.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there has to be a discussion about how things are handled within the gates. What happens outside the gates, not so much.
Right.
But you're hoping some of that wears off and goes outside the gates. But inside the gates, we've talked about safety for a long while, but we've not talked about the connection with the younger generation and the older generation inside the gates. Can you kind of elaborate on how that has not been a problem? I mean, I have to
Absolutely.
assume it has not, because we don't hear the negative side of that. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
Well,
But go ahead.
we get a lot of our active older adult community, the older generation. They actually, enjoy being around the youth and the kids. I think it makes them maybe feel younger with there. But once again, it's a respect thing. We have seen over the years. You have your ones where it's I'm the adult. You should be seen, not heard type mentality there. But for the most part, you're exactly right. And we try to balance with our lifeguard staff. If somebody's swimming laps in the lap lane, we're not jumping in their lap lane and goofing off in their lap lane. That's their space. So we try to really enforce the rules consistently there across the board. But the blend has been amazing. We get a really good group. Now, in the summertime and springtime, some of our active older adults, they'll come, in the morning when there's not as many of the little kids and everything out like that. But it's amazing to see, like you said, how they kind of all blend together and kind of all morph into their own times that they come there. But absolutely, it's a great blend. And I would say 98% of the youth that come in are phenomenal, really great, good manners and everything like that there. And the other 2%, we work with, and I've had several staff that have actually, they started coming to the aquatic center at 14. They got hired on at 16, there. So it's nice to see that growth and development, and they look up to those lifeguards. We have 15 lifeguards out on guard stands. There's 3 extra to rotate out because every 30 minutes they rotate guard stands. So that's 18 lifeguards that we have on duty at a time. So it's really hard to kind of go outside that wall when, there's so many staff around. There's really no room for error.
Right. Well, and the reason I brought that up is that we have really promoted this over the years as hey, let's stop down talking it. Let's see what we have. Let's work with what we have. And I've said this before. We're not backfilling the aquatic center, so people who didn't want it before have to learn to appreciate what we have. People who appreciate what we have, we need to exploit that experience more. And I think the fact that we're having a good blend doesn't mean that that's the stopping point.
Absolutely.
There needs to be more involvement from our community above board, from all age levels. And I want to take that fear out of maybe the senior population of saying, well, no, it's youth swim day. There's nowhere for me to swim. Don't we utilize the lap pool a lot of times for the senior swimmers?
Absolutely. And any given point in time, whether the water park's jam-packed, we have 8 lanes that are dedicated just to lap swimmers. And I always emphasize, I say, well, I'm not swimming, I'm going back and forth. That's a lap. We're not training for the Olympics here. I don't need to see any specific, strokes or anything. But, we dedicate those 8 lanes. That gives 8 spaces where you're in there, either by yourself or might be sharing with another adult. But we don't allow any jumping into them, splashing around. That's strictly for swimming. We've also, last year was our first year launching it. We launched a Relax Afloat series that was an hour in the lazy river 2 days a week, in response to what some of our active older adults were saying. Hey, we'd love to have the lazy river open a couple days without the kids. So, it's important that we hear both sides. And like you said, we figure out where that perfect mix is in the middle. But I think we do a fantastic job. Last year, we had 94,017 people through the doors at that point in time. So I think we're getting that mix right. It's just going to be when we take that next step, and hopefully this year we can go over 100,000, and it's going to continue growing there at that point. We're going to hit those areas where we might have to refocus and restructure, but that's why it's super important. The city does a fantastic job surveying the community. Fill out those surveys, let the city know, it may not come this year, next year, it may not come for 10 years down the road, but it is important information that we do digest and then come up with the best track forward to make the mix happen.
You guys are always adjusting, though, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And that's not an easy task to kind of adjust and make things work. But there has to be a little bit of pride taking place when you kind of pull these adjustments off and get them done. What's the feedback you're getting once you make some of these adjustments, like that 1 hour without kids in the lazy river? Are you getting feedback that way?
Absolutely. So one thing I want to talk about here, and I'll add a piece in for the entire department, then go right in that question, is our department is CAPRA accredited, which is the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Rec Agencies. So we're in the top 2% of all Parks and Rec departments in the country at that point. And what that does is that holds us to the fire to make sure that we're doing things right. We're polling the community, we're figuring out, and absolutely, we take a look at items and we go, okay, one of the things was our water aerobics class. We had it at a time, I believe we used to teach it at 9 to 10. And then we saw our numbers kind of started dwindling down a little bit when the water park opened up. We said, why? Well, it was too close to, the opening at 10 o'clock. A lot of people didn't want to come out at that point in time. So we shifted it back, just starting a half an hour earlier and ending at half an hour earlier there. And the feedback has been great. Our class went from about 5 or 6 people. Now we're up to 18 to 24, depending on the day. So absolutely, if it makes sense and we can do it, then we take a look at it. We have department meetings every month. We fill out program planners. I don't think the community really grasp how much time goes into thinking about a program. We don't just say, oh, we want to do this. No, what's the impact? Are we meeting inclusionary? Are we diverse with the program? What's the cost of the program? What are we recouping from the program? So there's a lot of that stuff that goes into that program planner, but that all rolls up into what I started with was our accreditation. And that's what holds us to that high standard, that accreditation there, our CAPRA accreditation.
And I have to point this out because you're 5 years now, right?
Yes.
So I think it wasn't too long ago I said you got to be one of the youngest people. What's the interaction? And now you're getting a little older. 5 years, I'm not going to tell you it's 50 years, but 5 years at the same location. That's it has to be really an eye-opening experience for you too, because of what you've learned. I want to talk about your transition from when you first started, and where you're at now, and what other youth in our city should be looking up to.
Absolutely. So I sit on a couple little mentoring groups there, and I always tell my story. So, the city afforded an opportunity. I came here 5 years ago as a recreation coordinator. I worked out of the Mullen Center. And when they were building the shiny new place called the Aquatic Center, I was kind of scared to go over at first. I kind of heard some positives, some negatives. It was kind of scary there. What's going to happen? But I like a challenge. So I came over as the head lifeguard, did that for a year. Then I became the assistant supervisor, did that for 2 years. Then I became the supervisor, did that for a year. And then was just promoted recently to the facility manager. So through all those different scopes, I look at things way differently, like you said. So when I was the head lifeguard, all I oversaw was the lifeguard and training. And I had to make sure that I had the best lifeguards in the entire country, entire world. I'd put them up against there at that point in time. Then when I went to the assistant supervisor, I had to make sure that the head lifeguard was training the lifeguards to the best of the standards, and also building up the concession stand. Then when I got the aquatic center, as the supervisor, I still had a manager to report to, but I had the whole operation, making sure everything flowed there. So one thing that I always like to tell, and I did track the college route, is, there's a lot of opportunities within the city that you don't have to track the college route. I have several lifeguards who started at age 16. We do trainings with our fire department here in the off season. So they got hooked with the fire department. I have 2 that are currently in the fire academy, going to be firefighters. I have one that just went off to go be a nurse. I have one that's going to be a sheriff's deputy. So I think it allows the youth to see that service in your community is huge. And over the years, as you said, my outlook has changed. 5 years ago, I didn't have any kids at that point in time. So now that I have kids, my outlook changes a little bit more. 5 years ago, I wasn't married. So, different things, happen there. So it's really incredible. But what I tell the youth in general is the city, a lot of people think that we are, overstaffed, too many people, but we do so much with so little here. I mean, our department, I think is 63 full-time employees without looking at the org chart at that point, servicing a community of 80 plus thousand people there. Do the ratio, the numbers, that's a lot to there, but it's incredible when you put that service to your community, sometimes in front of yourself there at that point. So I've enjoyed it. I love everything. I hope to be here until the day I retire. I enjoy what I do, but now as the manager, I'm looking at things. Now I have a supervisor that reports to me. So now I'm doing the budgets, the reporting, making sure we're on track, making sure we're hitting those performance measures, making sure that, the community is seeing the value, as you said, doing a little bit more outreach and things like that, and allowing the supervisor to kind of run around and get some of these little gray stragglies that have popped up over a couple of years being there.
Well, and let's talk about the outreach, because the outreach side of it has been a really, at least for the aquatic center, has been a really vital part of changing language within our
Absolutely.
community. Um, what are we doing now that the momentum, I think, is kind of turning? And because, COVID kind of was a setback, things happened that were completely out of Parks and Rec's control and out of the aquatic center's control, and the adjustments had to be made. But there were people in our community that held the aquatic center to that simple standard of, well, you weren't open, so you didn't make any money. Well, that reality is nobody was open and nobody was making money. So that's the reality of that. But where are we going now with the outreach and the education to the community on the difference and the impact that you guys are making within the aquatic?
Absolutely. So right now we're actually in the middle. I got to get mine up to Laura there. But we're actually in the middle. We do an impact report every single year so the community can see this is how much we made. This is how much we thought we were going to make. This is how much we made. This is how much we thought we were going to spend. This is how much we actually spent. So that should be going up there, and look forward for that. Laura Ansel, our marketing and partnerships manager, is a phenomenal human being. For those of you out there listening, if you've not met her, I don't know how, because she is always out and about at every event. But anything that we can do to get people to understand, and going back to what you said earlier, the value of having these facilities. If you look at it for the price tag, at that point in time, you're not going to see the value. But the value that we had, 500 plus kids go through swimming lessons last year, that we have a swim team that swims here, not only for the high school, which the high school has never held a meet in the city until the aquatic center was built. Then you have an all year round clubs team. So when you look at how much we are touching so many different households, it's super important. Anytime we can get to the schools for the ESOL nights, we go out there. Several of us sit on little community programs that we're always talking about the facilities and such. But I think in totality, COVID for our field in general was very essential in seeing and allowing people to see the impacts of being able to get outside of your house, because none of us liked being told we couldn't go to a playground or a park, and we didn't see the playgrounds and parks until unfortunately those things were taken away. But our department in the city, when we were asked to get reopened and figure out what we can do, oh my gosh, recreation over here jumped and did recreation on wheels, recreate at home, these programs, that programs. As soon as the aquatic center, and we had to wait, a lot of people don't know this, we had to wait for the state to give us permission to open the water park because it's licensed by the Department of Ag. So we had to wait for like the big theme parks to open up and such like that before we could open that up. And then they set the restrictions. We were ready to go. When the city did a great job getting ready to open back up to serve our citizens, because we understand the importance of all this that it has in life. Seeing those ladies, those active older ladies that come every morning who live alone just to say, hi, Devon, and it's so important for the overall community. And that's where that mixing, as you said, it's important that we are a mixed community because we have so many differences here. But when we come together, it's amazing when we come together.
I want to put a phrase out there. The effect of the community health has a lot to do with Parks and Rec.
Absolutely.
And you anytime that you go, and I don't care what city or state you're in, anytime that you go to the park, attitude and behaviors seem to be a little different, a little more positive, a little more forward, a little more supportive. Uh, I think that's the missing component to a city that doesn't have a great park system.
Absolutely. Well, during COVID, even when we had our restrictions for numbers, how refreshing it was to come into work during those times and seeing families smile, laugh, giggle, splash around in the water. That that was not only refreshing for them, but refreshing for the employees that were working as well during that, going through the same stuff. So you're exactly right.
And something to be said for the youth, and I'm going to let you take this with the younger generation, but I'll set the question as such: the impact that you get from getting your young kids to a park environment versus an iPad or a video game. Can you explain the impact that you see with kids who have been stuck on an iPad who have now transitioned to being at the park or being a lifeguard?
Absolutely. So a lot of people don't know this unless you talk to me all the time. But my wife and I, we made the decision this past summer to adopt a 5-year-old. So we have a 5-year-old, and then we have 2 kids of our own. So we have 3 in total. And our 5-year-old came glued to an iPad. Oh my gosh, just glued to it there. And it's so important to get out and socialize. Language. You're listening to the different way people talk. But yeah, just getting away from that. I don't remember what our pediatrician told us, but the number is like 30 minutes after like 6 years old is what they should have, or something like that there. So it absolutely is important getting them out in the sun, breathing the fresh air. When our kids start getting stir crazy in the house, we know it's time that we need to go to the backyard and go play and just let them run around and have fun. And a lot of people sometimes think it always has to be structured. It doesn't need to be. Take them to the pool and swim around with them at that point in time. Let them go left, right. Take them to the playground. Let them run up and down the steps and everything. It's super important for all parts of the body. The lungs are breathing outside. You're getting some sun. Things like that. You're just not in front of that iPad. Absolutely, there's a huge difference. And then socialization. That's one of the big things our parks bring to the community is get out there and meet other people, meet other kids. Let your kids be kids with other kids. It's an incredible thing to see.
And I'm going to go somewhere else because with my granddaughters, it's the accomplishments of the things that are at the park that are in a safe environment. They're really done the rock climbing, the different things that are out there at the parks. This weekend or this past week, Ellie did the rock climbing by herself and had the fear factor in there. And one of the other girls was a year and a half older and was struggling with it. And the dad came over to me and said, "How are you doing this with 2 kids?" And I'm panicking over one. And I looked at him and I said, "Listen, if she falls, she falls. But you know what? You're there to pick her up.
Absolutely.
Just give her some backing and let her go." And when Ellie got up the rock climbing by herself, she got up to the top and turned around, looked at the little girl and said, "See, I did it. You can." And
Exactly.
it's crazy to watch that transition from the fear of it all And as adults, I think we take that for granted sometimes when we take the kids to the park and we have a book in our hands and we're looking at a book or your tablet or whatever you take with you. You forget that there's some moments there that you should cherish. And
Absolutely.
now that you're a dad, are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many times. You get those. I call them the proud dad moments. You're like, you know what? When it finally clicks, and you're like, yes, it's amazing. But you're right. If you're not watching those moments, they don't come with a warning. They just happen. And if you're not there to be, you don't get to see it. And going back to that with the parks and the swimming lessons, those are some of the moments I cherish. I could tell you every time a kid that I've taught swimming lessons had that light bulb moment, because a parent, you could see they're getting frustrated, their kid's not putting their face underwater, and say, it's coming. It's coming. Just give it some time. It's coming. Work on this. And all of a sudden the kid comes in and puts their face in the water, and the parent goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And those are the moments that we have to celebrate, like everybody's watching, and just go crazy with it, because that it reinforces that confidence. We're teaching them everything. That's why they're called swimming lessons at that point in time. These kids are practicing and they're building confidence. And that's one thing that, we don't do at our facility, is we don't teach with any negativity at that point in time. If you want to blow bubbles today, perfect. If you want to wait till day 4 to blow bubbles, perfect. We're going to keep going with that. And we get a lot of parents, that come in and they say, my kid has a special ability. Bring them to group classes. Well, they don't really do well with. Bring them to group classes. Let's try. And then they get to the group classes and they see, because we create that safe environment for the kid, where the kid understands, if I don't want to be kicking my legs right now, Mr. Devon's not going to get mad at me. We're just going to keep moving on at that point. And then when I am kicking my legs while the other kids are blowing bubbles, Mr. Devon's celebrating, even though I'm not doing, and it is a very safe environment. So we get a lot of success out of that, but it's huge to be there for those moments.
Well, and we've started this show with all about what's up at the park and then into the aquatic center, and you've done a great job, because we really don't prep for any of these shows. We just go at it, and you know what? It's kind of cool because we never know where it's going to go. We never know where the listening audience is going to take us when they chime in. I do want to give you an opportunity to highlight or go over some things, if you have them, of upcoming things that people should be aware of.
So one of the big things coming up is our spring break. We have several events that are coming up there. So let me just get over to my.
That's okay. Do your thing. So you've got lots of programs, right?
Lots of programs coming up, and they're on our Facebook page. If you follow our Facebook page, Northport Parks and Rec. But as we talked about earlier in the show, the Aquatic Center will be opening up this Saturday and will remain open the entire spring break there. And then we're open weekends from there. There's Binglow Community Yard Sale. There are so many different activities to choose for, but if you follow us on Facebook there, so the Aquatic Center is open, as we talked about, the 11th through the 19th. Binglow, which will be at the George Mullen Activity Center, it's $10 for a 10-pack of cards, is on March 17th. Always make sure you stop by one of our parks. Go for a picnic, go for a hike, as John was saying. Just kind of get out of the house and enjoy the scenery. We have a lot of classes to try. You got Zumba, youth boxing. Come out to the Aquatic Center, try our water aerobics class. Sign up for one of our Learn to Swim programs. And then on March 18th there will be the community yard sale, which is always a community favorite, from 8 a.m. to noon. And it will have the Crafters Corner featuring handmade items from creative local vendors as well. So there's a lot going on there for spring break. The Aquatic Center swimming lessons kind of dialed down right now. We have some starting up in May. I believe the date is May 9th. A lot of people ask us why. It's really warm out. Well, we have over 600 kids coming in from the second grade schools starting. We have a group starting this week. Then we go into spring break. We have one at the end of March all the way through the beginning of May. We have classes going on. So that takes a lot of the staff resources. We do have in April, which will be at the Aquatic Center, our first time ever doing it. It's an Aloha at NPAC. So it's an adult-only night, no alcohol. It is a dry event there, but it'll be a luau party. We're going to have barbecue, pulled pork. There will be a soda included, things like that there. We're going to have some games. The water park will be open. So, as we were talking, John, those adult-only events, we did listen to the community, wanted some of those. So that's happening on April 29th there. And once again, adults only. It is $20 a person. And then we will be offering childcare, $15 a kid over here at the Morgan Center, if you can't find a sitter there. So a lot of exciting things happening there. And if you don't have a playbook, speaking to the audience there, please come into the facilities and grab a playbook. There are so many programs. I could talk for 3-4 hours on every single program the city was offering. And that playbook comes out twice a year. There'll be another one coming out in June. It runs from June through December, December through June. So it's super important you come on in and grab one of those playbooks.
And I'll tell you, not every city has a playbook. They really don't. And if you open up the inside of our playbook and you go page by page, you'll figure out real soon how valuable our parks really are to our community. And I really want to take time out to thank you for coming on to the show. And thank Laura for putting you up for it. Great job, by the way. Congratulations on your promotion. That is a huge, I'm so proud of you because I think I've been probably 3 years now, maybe 4 years knowing you.
It's been probably 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am, I'm very proud of you. Very proud of what you're doing. And, just kudos to you for putting your nose down and grinding your way through that and being the guy you are. And I think you're a huge asset. And I think you know that. And I think everybody else knows that. And, the only reason that we have success stories are because we have people like you who have a success story, who are really dedicated. And Laura is the same way. The dedication throughout Parks and Rec to make our city stronger because of our Parks and Rec community. It's crazy. And those of you who have not gone, suggestion for them, Devon?
Absolutely. Come on out to the Aquatic Center. Come on out to the parks and facilities. The big key piece of that is education, and that's what we do. Come on out to the facilities. Just take a tour of them, see what's being offered here, and I'm sure we have something out there for you.
And don't forget about Warm Mill Springs.
Absolutely. Warm Mill Springs there, and some more information. You can follow our if you want some updates there, it's northportfl.gov/Warm Mill Springs Park. We update that there to, have any press releases on there, but that's where all the information for Warm Mill Springs will be.
And it's still closed right now, correct?
It's still closed right now. Yes. We, I believe last week they sent out a press release about the modular buildings being delivered, and those are being set up with electricity and water. There, we did have some staff inside the springs cleaning up the springs and things like that. Our goal is to get it reopened. We just want to make sure we're reopening it up safely.
Yep. And that's all because of Ian, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Big part is Ian. Yes.
Yeah. So that's very important to keep aware of what's going on in our community. Thank you so much for being part of the show. I appreciate you. And I look forward to having you on again soon. Absolutely. And, keep doing a great job.
Thank you, John.
This is John Rawlings with WKDW Real Talk 97.5 FM. Join us on Friday. I'll have another great show. Just keep hanging in there. Keep community with unity and keep us strong. And thanks, Devon, for being an asset to the city.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Bye-bye.